Bring out your dead, bring out your dead. Folks, this is the Screen Watching Podcast, which is being brought to you directly from the sickbed of me, Dan Barrett, and also the sickbed of Simon Foster. What people don't know about the podcast is that Simon and I live in existence that's very similar to the Three Stooges, where we often lie in the same bed. It's a really wide bed with those sort of nightgowns and nightcaps. We've either got that happening, or bunk beds, where we've got 3 bunk beds. It's usually I'm on the bottom, Simon's in the middle, and then sometimes we'll have like a special guest star that comes by just for a night to live in the top bed. But, you know, that's just the way we live. Anyway, we are in our sick beds. Simon's unwell, I'm unwell, but for some reason, we were still able to open our eyes and watch some screens to have strong hot takes and opinions on the week's viewing. This is Screen Watching. We've got a big week. So, Simon's going to talk about the very buzzy and heavily negatively reviewed Death of a Unicorn. How does Simon feel about it? I'm keen to know, as he is the #1 unicorn expert for the Southern Hemisphere. Me, I'm going to be taking a look at Apple TV Plus's Your Friends and Neighbours. It's Jon Hamm on the TV again. I'm in. It didn't matter if it was good or bad. I was going to be there, strapped to my chair for the whole thing. But anyway, is it any good? I'll tell you. What else have we been watching? Great question. Simon's taken a look at a movie that I'm incredibly keen to see, despite what I suspect is my better judgment. It's called The Amateur. And also he's going to take a look at something called Bad Genius. I actually do not know what this is, so, you know, let's all find out. I'm also going to take a look at The Last of Us Season 2. It is back this week after a little bit of a hiatus. I've got reservations about the series broadly, but what did I think about Season 2? And then also Dying for Sex, which debuted last week. It's pretty good. I thought it was just worth a little bit of a chat at the end of the podcast. But, folks, we can only do all of that if we press play on our opening credits.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher, mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
So look, this is the Screen Watching Podcast. My name's Dan, joined by Simon. Simon, I'd ask if you're well, but I know you're not because you're just horribly unwell and barely sitting up.
Coughing and spluttering everywhere. Sorry to give you that image, screen watchers. Welcome to a week where there's been an awful lot of screen watching going on around the world. As we record this, Minecraft movie is still making big bucks, broken all sorts of records at the US and international box office, meaning eyes are on screen. On the small screen...
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Speaking of Minecraft,
Sure.
Did you expect the box office to be anywhere near the size that it's been for it?
Did anybody? Absolutely not.
Well,
it's such a phenomenon that's come back like that.
I'm going to put my hand up and say that I didn't expect it to be as big as it is,
Yeah.
but I was also surprised at how lowballed a lot of the advanced expectations were for it. So if people haven't been tracking your Minecraft movie, basically this is the movie based on the video game that's very popular with kids age, I think 6 through to about like 11 or 12. I think that's generally the sweet spot for it.
I think it goes back a long way. 2011, I think it was launched.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, that's the core demo,
core group,
actively playing the game.
Sure.
Like, I don't think you're really playing the game as an adult, generally. I mean, I could be wrong, I'm not deep into Minecraft, but I think it's something which, it's that sort of tween set that are, you know, getting into it. So, this film, essentially everyone's been looking at this guy, who's going to go and see a Minecraft movie? This is ridiculous. The tracking on it wasn't particularly amazing. They were pegging, at the various highest, I saw like about $40 million. But I was looking at that thinking, that just seems really low to me. Because what I had in my mind was that for the last 5 years or so, every time that I'm buying, well, me and my wife are buying Christmas presents for our nephews, who are all, nephews and niece, who are all sort of Minecraft interested, there's always a couple of them that are after Minecraft related stuff every year. It's branded t-shirts, it's mugs, you know, they were saying, you know, I want this mug, so, you know, we'd get the mug, like, that's fine. But, like, I'm just thinking there's, like, all these kids that are seeing Minecraft as a lifestyle brand and not necessarily being actively, like, gamers. It just struck me that this is the extension of that lifestyle brand, so it's going to do better than $40 million. Like, I was thinking like $80, $90 million seemed like a pretty safe ballpark.
There was a lot of analysis going into it. Is it going to be the sort of video game adaptation that is a big sort of 4-quadrant hit like Super Mario Brothers was, or is it going to sort of fall back? You know, you got to remember everyone's coming off the back of failures like Borderlands and other stuff last year that really tanked. We're coming off.
Isn't that the mistake? Sorry, I was listening to Matt Baloney hosting his The Town podcast the other day, which, you know, purports to look at, you know, what's happening inside Hollywood.
Yep.
But like he kind of said something which is very similar to what you just said then, which is that you look at these other video games and they sort of perform this way, but isn't that kind of just putting it in, like, think about all these video game adaptations being put into the same bucket? Isn't it just like misunderstanding what's really happening with video games? Like a Borderlands audience is a very specific type of an audience, whereas something like Super Mario Brothers or Minecraft fit into a very similar bucket of being very broadly accessible games which have multi-generational audiences. For Minecraft, this is a game that dates back about 15 years. Super Mario Brothers, like I was right there on the ground floor when Super Mario Brothers came into the Australian market. So we're talking there like 1988, 89, I think Nintendo properly launched in Australia. So, you know, I mean, I've been playing this since the late 80s. So, I mean, and like there's no way I was going to miss out on a Super Mario Brothers movie. Like that was just never on the cards. And I feel that was the same for anyone who grew up with a Nintendo for like, you know, that 35 years.
I think there's a definite sort of crossover between... Well, see, what we're doing here, we're trying to analyse what is the appeal of a specific brand as a video game title and what is the appeal that draws people into the movies. Now, you know, the video game didn't have Jack Black. The video game didn't have Jason Momoa. It didn't have a big screen, sort of widescreen artistic aesthetic to it. It was very much a create your buildings and create your world sort of game. So how they were going to transplant that into the movie format is where I think, and that's why it's taken sort of so long to generate. There was a whole lot of script doctoring and script moving around to make sure this really worked, that had the spirit of the game, if not actually the exact sort of nature of the game. And I think that's why Super Mario Brothers worked, the animated one just recently, because it achieved that. It captured the excitement and the essence of the game without actually just building on the building blocks of the game, no pun intended. And that's what Minecraft has done to an even bigger and better degree. So, and then you've got to understand that there's been nothing for family audiences, excuse me, to see at the movies for the last 8 weeks. There's been no big product tie-ins. I think Minecraft at last count had something like 45 product tie-ins.
Yeah, but come on, I mean,
really positioned all that positions.
But a Minecraft product tie-in isn't just, you know, what comes out for the Minecraft movie. Like there is thousands of Minecraft bits of merch sitting in stores like everywhere.
There's been a very specific relaunch of the Minecraft brand as a movie-based property to do with this movie.
As a movie-based property, but I guarantee you that kids walking out of their Minecraft movie are not just going, oh, I want my merchandise to be reflective of the Jack Black experience I just had. They're just after anything with blocks and Minecraft written on it.
For sure, but Minecraft has never had the McDonald's brand next to it, or never had the Kellogg's brand next to it, which is what the movie is able to position, and why those sort of dollars and those sort of audiences transfer to the big screen. There's been a lot of I
always wonder if that helps. Like I think back to like
so in the course of the fact that in the actual contemporary marketplace that is movies right now, to position a movie with that kind of product tie-in and that sort of base indicates a show of support from the commercial industries out there, and that does have a lot of sway.
I just don't know that actually moves tickets. Like I think that, particularly in Minecraft, which, as I said, is this lifestyle brand. We'll talk more about Minecraft than I expected. Something like Minecraft, which is such a lifestyle brand, I don't know that McDonald's necessarily adds that much more to it. I was a bit surprised when I saw that on a bag the other day when I had some sneaky McDonald's during the week. It just sort of surprised me a bit. Like, it's just so all-encompassing. But anyway, Simon, let's continue on.
Well, the other point I was going to make was that while Minecraft is getting a lot of eyeballs on the big screen, there's been some huge small screen audience as well. More figures have come out about the sort of numbers that are watching Adolescence on Netflix, and we've had the week wrap up The White Lotus with a season 3 finale, which has... And I've sort of followed your views through your very entertaining and informative newsletter, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts on exactly as it wrapped up. I'll give you mine. For me, the finale was an underwhelming experience. There was a lot of very convenient plotting, which for me, sort of spoke to how important a lot of the unimportant a lot of the storytelling was throughout the season 3, which isn't to say it wasn't enjoyable, and isn't to say it didn't have some standout stars and some great moments, but I don't think it wrapped on any kind of significant high the way season 2 did for me. And I'm keen to get your thoughts.
I feel like there's two types of viewers for The White Lotus. There's the correct viewers and then there's the incorrect viewers. But the way to look at The White Lotus, which I got really hard on when I saw Mike White talking about the show, because he completely echoed the way that I viewed the show entirely, which is that it's not a narrative show by any means. I mean, there's certainly narrative plot elements to it, but so much of the show is just about the vibe. It's about thinking sort of about the sort of thematic ideas about those with wealth and what wealth does to you as a person, not necessarily in a way that really puts a bow on anything. It's just this is kind of the way that people behave, and you can kind of place a moral judgment on that or not, choosing on how you want to look at it. But largely, it's about a vibe. It's about watching sort of people, you find a bit about their perspective sort of unravel. It's not necessarily something which is there. It's like the difference between old-style 1980s sitcoms, which have a very specific narrative thread running through an episode, okay, which gets resolved at the end of every episode, or something like Seinfeld, which was more about the like conversations and character elements that you come across throughout the way. The idea that Seinfeld was a show about nothing was never really true. It's always about something. Okay, but it just wasn't really a story engine in the same way that sitcoms until then had traditionally been. I think The White Lotus has a very similar mode of operation around it, where it's about the vibe, it's not that there's no story at all, but certainly that's not the most important thing about the show. They hook people in every season on the show by having that murder mystery element. And so all the thought piece leading up to it was because who dies in the final episode? And it's like, well, it doesn't really matter who dies in a final episode. It's kind of about what's going on when Patrick Schwarzenegger's lying down on a... what do they call them? Is it a Lilo? Is that the name of this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. A Lilo, sipping a cocktail and getting upset about his brother giving him a hand job. Like, that's kind of that's what the show is actually about. So just sort of reaching the end going, oh, some of these plots didn't really mean anything. And it's like, well, how did you feel during the time that you were watching it? That's actually what matters.
Yes. And on the Richard Osman podcast, was it called That's Entertainment or something like that? The one he does with the moon. He made a very similar point that once you introduce a murder in the very first episode, and he does this with his books, that you can kind of spin off in every direction because you've always got that audience hook where they know that there's a murder, and at some point that'll come back into it and be solved. But until then, you can sort of play with the characters like chess pieces, which is kind of what Mike White does. I think that can also be said, exactly what you were saying of season 2, yet season 2 was a much more satisfying and much more propulsive and compulsive sort of viewing experience, not because the plot was any greater, but because the characters were better written, the play out of all the characters and how their storylines, however unrelated to the overall quote-unquote vibe of the show, was much better handled. There can be vibe, and season 3 was full of vibe, but there also needs to be a storyline and a group of characters, an ensemble that maintains interest. And I don't know if season 3... Well, I do know that season 3 didn't always do that.
Look, I think it's a fair argument to make that I didn't enjoy the characters in season 3 as much as I did season 2 or season 1. Okay, but where I think I get really just annoyed and frustrated is this ongoing sort of narrative of, oh, the show's lost it, but the show's kind of doing the same thing it's always done. Like, I can certainly appreciate not enjoying the storylines as much, and if I was to level of criticism at this season, it's probably that I think the choice of Thailand means that you've got... It's a different vibe around it. Okay, so you're going to find sex is probably going to play less of a role in the show because you're just kind of playing around sex in a different way. Sex within a resort is probably going to play a different role. Like, remember season 2, it was largely, one element of it, probably one of the more interesting elements of season 2, was around the young prostitutes that were working out at the hotel and the sort of politics there. You're not going to find that in a Thai hotel. So, like, immediately you've kind of lost, like, that sort of... physical
energy.
Physical energy to it. So that's gone. But also I think the darkness of Thailand. So you're sort of looking at these really sort of lush trees sort of creating like just generally an actual sort of darkness over the thing. It doesn't have that sort of sunlit vibe that seasons 1 and 2 had. So I think that immediately you're kind of put off a little bit because it just kind of looked and felt a little bit different.
Can we talk to? And we won't go on much longer about this because I know it'll fade in the rearview mirror of pop culture.
I feel it's already faded. It's been like all of 4 days since the show aired.
The actual specifics of that final moment that Guy took, and I'm going to spoil it here. So if you haven't watched the finale yet, please just pause and roll forward to our reviews. That'll be coming up in a few days' time. The shooting in the back of the Walter Goggins character would not have gone unnoticed by those investigating the killings.
Okay, so look, I've heard that complaint as well. And just sort of also thinking about the fact that we're dealing with resort owners who I believe have like some dodgy dealings. I think that if we want
as a viewer, if you've got to make those assumptions to make that end work, I would say that opens up too.
You've made an assumption, think that legal system there is going to just function the same way as it would.
You've made one that it isn't.
Well, I'm just saying you still made the assumption.
Yes, but you've got to read that assumption into as we understand the legal system would work.
I think the show
we shouldn't be then asked to go to the next level to say, well, because the dead millionaire and his iconic actress wife can then sway the legal system to make sure that Guy Took gets off and becomes their bodyguard. I don't think that's.
But haven't we already seen, like in the previous 7 episodes, with the way the police handled the robbery, that, essentially it's not necessarily going to be entirely legally kosher? It's not like the show just expects you to make that assumption out of nowhere. Like, the show had introduced that as an element to it. Like, well into the series.
That it went unsolved is different to that it...
Yeah,
they got away with it. But why would the resort owners not want the robbery solved? That's not the same. That's a different argument to what you're saying.
Oh, look, I'm just saying that the way the police are functioning sort of within this sort of resort and a relationship between the resort and the police is not necessarily as straight down the line as you're kind of expecting here, that the police are going to come in and just, immediately just solve this murder and be fine. Like, essentially, like, there's no mystery as to who shot Walton Goggins. Like, I'm sure that was fine, but I'm sure
as he was carrying away a body that Guy Tock didn't know was dead, and that just the screaming of the old lady to say, shoot him, and she shot him. I think that paints a very dark sort of view of...
But we saw that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it was presented to the police.
Well, he was shot in the back.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's fine.
So the point being, there was a whole other points as the finale unfolded in front of me, I found, is it Due Machina? Is that the term that they use in... The beats of the drama, that the things that spin the plot became less and less. Deus Machina became less and less convincing to me, and sort of unravelled a bit towards the end there. Which is not to say I didn't enjoy the whole series, but season 3, White Lotus, is done for another year. Do we have any idea where they're setting the next one?
No.
He said it's definitely not a beach though, so it could be like Burwood RSL or something.
I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah, we can only hope.
My assumption had long been that they'll do it in Australia because the benefit of doing... Because, look, it's not necessarily a creative decision as to where they're filming these things. So Mike White didn't want to do it in Thailand at all, but HBO sort of bent his arm around to doing it. And it's because they were able to get tax breaks there, and it was just financially prudent to do it. My thinking was that they'd do Australia next because they've launched Max in Australia. They want to have the sort of idea of, we've got Australian productions. This is a cheap way of doing an Australian production without actually doing something new and investing money into it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but they're not. I think it's going to be largely scattered across Europe is the way that's looking at the moment.
Well, there's been talk of a snow chalet type of thing, which would indicate Sweden.
Yeah, but he doesn't like the cold, so that might be a bit of an issue.
Wasn't it? But he was a great American race, or whatever that thing's called, the Amazing Race contestant. Yeah, I've knocked out in the second round or something, but still, he was up for the different climbs.
He's been in the Amazing Race twice now. Yeah. One in like a celebrity version, and like there was one of those seasons that he was there for quite a while. So, yeah. Then you don't get to choose where you go in the Amazing Race. You go where the envelope tells you.
I remember many years ago when this podcast used to be about reviews. Can we please get onto that?
You went down this path.
It's review time. Yeah.
Why did you introduce that? Like there's a section.
Don't we do a sting anymore? Oh.
Didn't we? You were here last week for this very conversation on the podcast.
Oh, I'm so unwell, Dan. The meds are kicking in.
Yeah, that's the reason. Okay, look, folks, we're going to take a look at Death of a Unicorn, which is playing in cinemas right now. Let's watch the clip.
Ridley? Are you okay?
It kind of felt like it was showing me something. I get this feeling I don't think we're supposed to be here.
The Leopolds donated this entire nature preserve. And they care about a lot of things, not just pharmaceuticals.
Fine. I will sit there and smile.
Sorry, we're late.
What happened? You walked from the airport or what?
It's perfect timing.
I need you to act like everything is fine.
Okay. Now, let's be clear that these aren't the unicorns that little girls have stitched onto their bedroom pillows. These are drooling monster horses. They sort of regenerate. They're very nightmarish beasts. They're probably more akin to the raptors in Jurassic Park. Now, it becomes a thing because distracted dad Paul Rudd, who is still too young to play any sort of patriarchal figure. I know he's kind of done it in the past, but it doesn't convince here.
How is he too young? He's a man who's in his mid-50s.
He still looks too young on screen to be Jenna Ortega's dad, who looks too old to play this idealistic teen that she plays in the movie. So there's a bit of miscasting going on, which put me offside to start with. But their car hits a baby corn, and he demands that she help hide this unfortunate incident, and things get way out of hand. I would suggest that perhaps taking the injured mythical animal to the compound home of his cruel, cancer-ridden boss, Richard E. Grant, probably wasn't the best idea. Unlike this film, which probably read great conceptually, it's a sort of a fantasy horror comedy that sharpens its own horn on greedy big business ethics, but it never nails that landing, and it doesn't really nail any sort of landing. It's not quite scary enough to be a monster movie, although it sort of goes down that path at times, or bloody enough to be a horror film. And it does have some fun moments, mostly with Will Poulter's sort of douchey bro character, but it's never the sum of some good parts, and especially the ending for this. And I'm not going to give away too much of an ending, but I sort of feel that the producers at some point said, oh, okay, the best thing about this movie is the unicorns. Can we put some more unicorns in here, but we haven't got any more money to do it? So they use this animation, which looks very sort of 80s Ralph Bakshi type of animation, especially in one key sequence where I sort of went, oh my God, that is unfinished CGI. So it delivers less than it promised, I would say, with Death of a Unicorn, despite a cast that includes Taya Leone in there, who's really good, and Richard E. Grant, who, you know, he's always fun to watch, and he goes to great lengths to bring the laughs with this one and to bring the nastiness. But it ran along, it was unfunny, and it ultimately wasn't very much of anything, I got to say. So Death of a Unicorn, blah.
Look, disappointing. It had a lot of really positive buzz to it, and I think the high concept of it pretty appealing. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anyone really say anything particularly favourable on this one.
No, it went into South by Southwest where it had its premiere with a lot of buzz around it, and it came out of that screening with like, maybe not. And I don't even know if, well, it was an A24 title, so it'll get some kind of, and it speaks to me that maybe there's been quite a few movies lately from A24 that have, I don't know whether they've coasted or they've not lived up to what A24 really promised in the past. As recently as one of your favourite movies, Beau is Afraid, and some other A24 stuff. I know I enjoyed Civil War, but not everybody did. There's kind of a vibe, to use your word, that A24 is taking some big swings, and that's a good thing, but maybe the material's not quite fully ready to shoot on some of these films.
Well, look, I mean, I'd say Beau is Afraid. There'd be no one that can really look at that and say this is an incomplete work. As though there was a pure artistic ambition that has been fully realised on that screen. And I'd say the same thing for Civil War. Just because, you know, not everyone in the audience necessarily went for it, doesn't necessarily mean that A24 is misfiring. I think what we're looking at here is this the studio that is in growth. It is commissioning. It's making films which are larger in scope, in terms of budget, in terms of star power capability into it, and playing to just bigger, broader audiences. And when you're trying to maintain a film studio that has a very consistent, I guess, sort of commitment to artistic intention, which is definitely a little bit left of center. And I don't mean that politically, I just mean in terms of creative bent. I think you're just automatically going to find more people are dismissive of something because more people are seeing it. There's more eyes on it.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain why Death of a Unicorn's been so widely disregarded. This is a misfire, I think.
I think it's just a misfire. I think it's good that I've got some misfires because it means that they're still taking some wild swings.
Yeah, for sure.
If it's just safe film after safe film, I'm not that interested in that.
No, totally agree. Yep, totally agree. All right, so Death of a Unicorn is in cinemas as we speak. What's up with you next?
Oh, look, what isn't with me next? Hey, I'm going to tell you a little story about me a couple of months ago, maybe about a year ago.
Yeah.
I heard there was a TV series in the works from one Jon Hamm. You may be familiar with him from shows like, what's he even known for? That's silly. He's from Mad Men. He's Don Draper. Look, you got Jon Hamm in a TV series for Apple TV Plus, which meant there was always going to be a budget on it. And I knew that Jonathan Tropper was the guy running it. Jonathan Tropper is a gentleman. He was a pulp novelist who ended up making his way over to TV and co-created the show Banshee. Now, if you haven't seen Banshee, you need to click on Banshee. It is... Sorry. Excuse the language here for a moment. But guys, it is fucking wild. There is so many sort of amazing action sequences in that one. There's just really gratuitous nudity through it. It is a wild, fun, crazy TV show that Simon Foster, you would love this program.
I've got to watch it.
It is very much
nudity.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Banshee's fantastic. But I heard that he was running this show, and I was like, I've got to see what he's doing with Jon Hamm. Anyway, let's watch a clip. I'll let you know what I think of it after the clip.
How are the kids?
Oh, they're fine.
Wife?
Ex-wife.
Well, I gotta deliver some bad news. You're fired.
What? Viewed from a certain perspective, life boils down to a series of interconnected decisions. You get the house, the cars, the stuff. But how the hell could everything go so wrong so fast?
Has anyone ever told you that you talk a lot?
Well, I misplaced my inner monologue and my wife right around the same time.
I wouldn't say necessarily like an all-star cast, but it's certainly a cast of people that you're well familiar with. So Jon Hamm leading it. Olivia Munn plays a friend with benefits of sorts, loose friend. Amanda Peet's his ex-wife in it. Hoon Lee, who people know from Banshee, is in here as well. And then there's a whole bunch of supporting actors that crop up throughout that you'd be familiar with. Corbin Burnsen's in this, because we're in a Burnson renaissance right now. And then also, one of my absolute screen loves, this actress named Sandrine Holt is also in this one. Okay. You know Sandrine Holt?
She hasn't been around she's been around for a long time. Yeah, she's lovely.
Been around forever. She's been largely sort of doing just ongoing TV work. So she's certainly got a bunch of movie credits, an extensive series of movie credits. And when you go through it, it's oh, she was in that. It's a lot. But TV-wise, people would know her from shows like 24. There was a season where she was in it quite heavily. Obviously, she made guest appearances, just a whole bunch of things over time. But Mr. Robot, she's got a very strong presence in that one. Even though I think it's only 2 or 3 episodes she's in, but it's memorable. Done a bunch of Law and Order, SVUs, and Better Call Sauls, and just all the big shows that you've certainly watched over the years. But she's always in pretty prominent roles because people just kind of love her. She was in House of Cards for one of the seasons as well. So people certainly know her even if you don't know her by name. But she comes into this one as a cop who's investigating the mysterious thefts that have been taking place in some in a gated community. Actually, I don't know if it's gated, but suddenly it's a area with a lot of mansions and a strong community around them. So what's going on in this program is that Jon Hamm is a fund manager. He's got a lot of money. You're watching the opening sequence as you see him go from his initial house with his new bride to them buying their first home and then their second home and their third home, and gradually they're getting bigger and bigger. And so he's leading, that top 1% life. Okay, he drives his fancy car. Everything's going fine. He's separated from his wife as the series properly kicks off. She's now with his ex-best friend. So that's a bit of a personal issue for him, but he finds himself in a hotel one night. A young woman sees him from across the other side of the bar. She comes over. She's quite a bit younger. She's in her late 20s. He's in his mid to late 50s. Early 50s. Sorry, I didn't want to age up Jon Hamm there too much. He's in his early 50s. Anyway, she comes over. She flirts with him. He's like, no, this is a terrible idea because the age difference. She's like, dude, I just want to get laid. So anyway, cut to, I think it's like 2 or 3 months afterwards, he gets called into a meeting with, I'm going to loosely call it a meeting, with Corbin Burnson, who's his boss, and is like, oh, you know that woman that you slept with? She actually, she technically reports into you, so therefore we have to let you go from the company. We've got a really strict policy around this. Anyway, so he gets let go from the company under some circumstances that aren't necessarily legally really quite right, but he's given it a go. So Jon Hamm finds himself with no money because all of his savings were caught up in this fund that the company manages, so he wasn't able to extricate any of the cash that belongs to him. He's financially not destitute, but he doesn't really have much to him. He's got an ex-wife that he's still trying to make alimony payments to. He's got 2 teenage kids, and he is left to his own devices as a man who used to have wealth and is now looking from the outside in, or from the inside out, outside in. So he's looking at all these people that used to be his social circle, and he's still hanging out at like the tennis club with them. He's still going to their barbecues and everything else. But he's just looking at the guy, and you guys have this excess of money right now, and you're just all just ridiculous in the way that you actually treat your wealth and treat all the people around you. So he decides he's going to start stealing from them.
Were they all aware of why he was sacked from his job? Is it common knowledge?
Nobody knows. So he hasn't even told his wife, ex-wife, Amanda Peet. So all that's down low. And so it's basically him just sort of getting around, stealing expensive watches, rolled up bunches of cash. So
is he Robin Hooding this? What's he doing all this stuff?
He's robbing from the rich to put into his pocket.
Oh my God.
But he's also knowing
complex character, this one.
Well, I think he's a morally dubious character, but also he's kind of on the side of the audience. Okay. So the audience looking at this guy going, yeah, fair enough. So this show, it's wealth porn because you're watching him just go into like these really just lavish homes and lavish lifestyles, and you're able to see, hey, look, this is how people are living. But at the same time, like the audience are completely on side with him, where it's like, oh my God, can you believe that people are living like this? And there's, in the background, you see like the maids and everyone else who clearly are not living the lifestyle of the people that live in these houses. And so the show's kind of cracking down that billions to the TV show, billion-style wealth porn and that sort of aspirational idea as to what the wealthy are doing, and really bringing into more of that mainstream idea of the 1% and how we really should be feeling about people with this level of extravagance.
Is he doing it full cat burglar style with the beanie and the black skivvy?
Yes and no. At first, he's kind of just wandering into houses, but the more sophisticated his venture becomes, the more it becomes a bit more wearing the, all black.
Sure.
I'm not going to say too much on that because there's some pretty big plot points around that as an idea.
Okay.
But is this any good? I really like it. I was always going to be on board for a Jon Hamm TV show.
You love your
I
Hamm.
will follow that guy anywhere.
You really do.
Love the Hamm. I'm totally in for it.
Good.
As a show, I think there's maybe a bit too much of a sameness throughout it, where The White Lotus, as discussed at the beginning, is very much about the vibe. I think this is a bit more about sort of thematic ideas. Well, one very specific thematic idea, and it's kind of stretched over maybe sort of too many episodes without enough variance in that plot going through it. That said, I still really enjoyed pressing play on every single one of those episodes, and probably plays so much better as a episodic weekly watch than it does as a binge, where I think it's a lot more evidence that you're watching the same story, just really sort of stretched out.
Just to backtrack a little bit, why I love Sandrine Holt is her 1-2 film debut and follow-up. She was in Bruce Beresford's Black Robe all the way back in 1991, and then she played the love interest Romana in a film called Rapa Nui, which is a big Easter Island tribal romance thing that Kevin Costner produced. So yeah, Sandrine Holt, that's a big pull. As is Jon Hamm. I'm thinking there's also a new TV series out called The Bondsman. You could have had Ham and Bacon this week on the podcast because it stars one Kevin Bacon. We could have had a very pig-based diet of reviews this week. But
where was this brains trust 2 days ago when we first came up with that rundown?
Remember a few years back I said we should start having production meetings? That would have come out in a production meeting.
Yeah, but come on, 2 years and we've had one good idea.
That's true. Best Movie Year podcast. Go over there now to listen to it. That's our one good idea. All right,
Okay,
that's good.
let's knock these out. We've done some other watching during the week. Quickly, what else have we watched, Simon?
All right. Well, also in cinemas is The Amateur. If you imagine Professor Frink as John Wick, and you'll get some idea of what Rami Malek does with this remake of a largely forgotten 1981 film. It starred John Savage. I did that thing where I watched the original in the morning, and it's a very sort of dated Cold War type of 80s thriller. The stakes are very low, but it was quite watchable. And then you get to this one, which is the 2025 update. In this one, it's all black market weapon sort of markets and corrupt mid-tier government men. Rachel Brosnahan, your gal from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, she plays his wife. She gets bumped off very early on, but keeps turning up in flashbacks, and that's why someone like her was cast. And he goes when his CIA bosses don't want to help him out and seek murderous revenge. He does that by himself. He's never not watchable, Rami Malek, but in the era of Jason Bourne and Ethan Hunt, he's this morally questionable anti-hero whose cunning involves a lot of screen watching and keyboard action. It keeps the tension pretty low, so it's well made, but it's a low-key sort of film, and I think it's going to disappear pretty quickly. The other one I watched this week is called Bad Genius. Now, this one's taken a while to get to us, and I get the feeling that it's kind of a bit of filler product for the cinema before it makes its way to our small screens. It's the story of a brilliant Asian-American student played by Kalina Liang, who's terrific in this, and to make ends meet, she devises a plan to cheat the SAT exam and to charge her classmates to be part of the action. It's a remake of a hit Thai film that sort of had a bit of a global art house release back in 2017, and it has all the energy and all the thrills of a heist film, but it's also got this deeper theme of privileged America, the white kids, the rich kids, who really exploit her intelligence and her ambitions along the way. And that's what really resonated with me about this film. Benedict Wong stars as her working class dad, and he's terrific in this film. So, this one's a really stylishly made, really sort of, once again, morally complex sort of film, which I'm glad I caught up with.
Yeah, on the TV side of things, two things I'm going to throw out there is The Last of Us returns for Season 2 this coming Monday. Season 1 of The Last of Us, which, I don't know, was that 3 years ago now? It's been a while. There's been a long gap between drinks in this one. I had some issues with it, and largely that was just because I played the video game, and this was a TV series where episode by episode, it really just recreated, extended sequences and, storylines and characters from the video game. The thing with The Last of Us that's different from most video games is that this game is just incredibly cinematic. It really is like you're playing a movie while you're running through this. And so I didn't really see a lot of artistic benefit to adapting that into a film because we'd kind of already seen that, especially so soon after the game came out. Like, if it was 30 years ago, then, sure, like do the modern adaptation of it. But just, by the time the game came out versus when the TV series is like 7 years maybe, it was just too soon. But the TV series certainly had a couple of moments where they evolved the game and grew out some interesting characters out of it. And so you've got obviously the iconic episode with
Nick Offerman,
and
Murray Bartlett.
Like, you got that episode, and certainly, like, that was a great hour of TV, but I don't think we should necessarily be saying that the entire season was a unqualified success because there was one really great episode and then the rest was just retreads of the video game. That said, I haven't played The Last of Us 2, so I'm going into Season 2 unexposed to any of the stuff that I'd, in theory previously have seen. So I watched the first episode, had a great time with it.
Good. Okay. Yeah, I was a big fan of the first series, having not played the game at all. So I'm looking forward to the second series. The addition of Caitlin Devers, who I'm a big fan of, and the ongoing relationship between Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, I'm looking forward to. They're an interesting on-screen pairing. So yeah, I'm keen.
Yeah. The other thing during the week that's worth noting is Dying for Sex debuted last week. You can find it here on Disney+. It's a Hulu series in the US, and this is oh gosh, why have I just forgotten her name?
Michelle Williams.
I want to say Michelle Williams, and I'm like, it's not Williams. Michelle Williams, she's a woman in a marriage that isn't working. She finds out that she's dying of cancer, and the one thing that she feels she never really had in her life was a fulfilling sex life. So with the help of her best friend, she makes the last couple of months in her life as memorable as possible.
A sexathon.
I wouldn't say it's a sexathon, but it's definitely very sex motivated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway,
who's cast with her? Who's the object of her affections?
It's that lady that was a Saturday Night Live cast member.
No, not Jenny Slate. Who's the guy?
Oh, well, what? Which one? The one that nails things into his penis? Or are you talking about her husband?
What are you talking about? Nails things into his penis?
Dude, it's the show. Don't
Really?
question what I'm talking about here.
Oh, my goodness. Rob Delaney is who I'm thinking of. Sorry, just IMDb'd that. I like Rob Delaney.
Who puts nails into his penis?
Good Lord. Sorry if you're dropping the kids off at school, everyone. That's...
Don't ask questions about a show called Dying for Sex if you don't want the answers, Simon.
I wasn't expecting that answer. But okay, fine. Big Michelle Williams fan.
Big fan of hammers.
Big fan of hammers and nails around the nether regions, so bring it on.
So, folks, this has been Screen Watching.
We're going out.
Simon Foster, do you want to give a plug for your various works?
Yes. Go to Substack, which is where all the cool people are right now, and read and sign up for my Screen Space newsletter, which I get out and about probably on about Thursday of every week so far. The whole world's talking about it. So that's over on Substack. We are starting to rev things up on the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival front as well. Made a couple of programming decisions this week, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, what are you doing with your time, Daniel? If that is your real name.
It is my name most of the time. It is the same thing I do every week, Simon. It's called the Always Be Watching newsletter. It comes out 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. It's called the stories that you want about the streaming TV and just general screen landscape. It's free to subscribe, but feel free to throw a few pennies my way if you want to support the newsletter.
And in light of what we just discussed, we'll be launching our new podcast, Pins and Balls, which is a podcast on bowling, 10-pin bowling, which I know we're all big fans of. So
that's it. I'm pins, he's balls, together. Yeah. Anyway, folks, this has been Screen Watching. We'll be back next week with more of this. Sorry.